as we noted, the third scheduled debate, although the second debate, the town hall, was canceled as a result of the president testing positive for coronavirus and then not accepting the conditions under which a second debate would take place. Now, they'll be back on Thursday. President Donald Trump will be debating Joe Biden, the Democratic challenger. Kristen Welker from NBC will be the moderator. And what can we expect? That's one of the things we're going to talk about now with Dr. William Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University. Oh, by the way, has also looked very closely at debates, the news verdicts, the debates, and presidential campaigns, one of the books that he has authored. He is tweeting at DRB Rosenberg and is with us. Bill, welcome back. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning.
Like so many things in 2020, the presidential campaign has been upended. We had 3 scheduled debates. We're only going to have now a second. We skipped that middle one, the town hall debate. This will be, again, a more traditional debate. Sort of set it up for us of where we are in as we get to this final debate on Thursday night.
Well, if you think back just a little while ago, we had a traditional debate, at least it was supposed to be a traditional debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden that was sort of ineffectually monitored or moderated by Chris Wallace from Fox News. In that debate, we saw that Donald Trump ran roughshod over the rules, and it was not possible for Chris Wallace, even though he tried, to sort of moderate the debate in a way that was going to allow both candidates to be able to preserve the rules that they had both agreed to. The second debate obviously got canceled because of COVID, and with what appears to be a remarkable recovery, Donald Trump just a few days later was out on the campaign trail again and was arguing that he should be able to debate and that he wanted to have a debate, but it was a no-go by the commission because he wouldn't follow the rules about submitting medical information about a test and so forth. And by that point also, Joe Biden had already accepted an interview with a television network. Now we're coming to the third debate with Kristen Welker from NBC News, and it'll be really interesting to compare how she handles the debate versus Chris Wallace, and at the same time to also compare how Savannah Guthrie from NBC handled the town hall sort of public interview with Donald Trump. She was much more aggressive at calling the president out, asking follow-up questions, and keeping the movement of the questions of the audience moving forward. So we'll have to see how well Kristen Welker does. My sense is that it's going to be a rather awkward situation with both of them on the same stage at the same time, and having the president really in a position where he needs to flip the election. He's currently trailing in almost all polls nationally. Well, he is trailing in all polls nationally and in many of the what we call battleground states.
The town halls that happened last week, again, President Trump with, as you mentioned, Savannah Guthrie on NBC and George Stephanopoulos handling the ABC town hall with Joe Biden. Savannah Guthrie opened it up with about 15 minutes of her own questioning. That's kind of in the absence of another candidate, right? In other words, a town hall where you just have the listeners or the people in attendance asking questions, it's not the same as having the other candidate there to ask and challenge the questions. So what does that do with Kristen Welker when she has to now leave it to Joe Biden to answer questions? Or I'm not sure if she's going to get the permission to turn the microphone off or not. I'm not sure if that's been approved or not.
Well, you're right. That policy of the Presidential Commission has not been spelled out, whether or not there'll be a button that someone can push if Donald Trump refuses to follow the rules and doesn't allow Joe Biden his opportunity to respond. At the same time, though, we have to recognize that these debates sort of remind me of an example of what I saw yesterday on television watching NFL football. When you watch those large arenas with the players on the team, sure, it was like Donald Trump and Joe Biden going at each other, but the audience there was really very small. Many times there was only 5,000 people in the audience as fans at the games, but millions watched the games. The same thing is happening with the debates. The audience at the debate is really small. Really what we're dealing with is a mediated reality where it's televised and people who are interested in watching either a political contest or a train wreck, whichever way you want to describe it, are going to be able to see how these candidates operate. There's some discussion that Donald Trump is going to try and tone down his behavior and his actions at the debate, but I would doubt it because he really needs to do that to attract new voters, but at the same time, he doesn't want to appear to be a sellout to his base, and he wants to appear to be a very strong candidate who's got strong opinions. So we're going to be in this awkward situation of not so much how Joe Biden is going to behave, but more how the moderator is going to handle the debate and how Donald Trump perceives his role at the debate.
One of the questions, again, Dr. William Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University, is who is going to be persuaded? And it was a sense in the last debate that the president didn't really persuade anybody. Probably Joe Biden didn't. And now we've already, Bill, seen record numbers of people already having cast ballots before this final debate. So who's left to be persuaded?
It's a very interesting question. I would think on some level, though, the people that are persuadables are the ones that have not yet sent in their ballots. If they were firmly convinced that they wanted to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, they would have probably been more rather than less likely to send in those ballots. But we're really talking about a very small number of persuadables. And those persuadables, we have to wonder, where do they lie in terms of the political spectrum? They're different, I think, than the traditional independents that sort of are trying to decide between the Democratic and Republican Party. I think it's sort of a heightened politicization in 2020 where many people are trying to decide what to do. I think a lot of people in 2016 ended up voting for Donald Trump for either two reasons. One reason is that they probably did not like much of the Clinton campaign. But secondly, also thought that why not try something different? Let's see whether or not Donald Trump can do something here. And according to what I've seen in the polls, it looks like two of the principal groups there, and in fact one of them specifically, white suburban women, have paired themselves away from the Trump campaign. So those people are probably not so much the persuadables in 2020. So what we have to see is for a declining number of people who are trying to still make a decision, which messaging is going to be most impactful on them. And my sense is that probably people at this stage, if they're really in the persuadable group, may be so conflict-ridden with what should they do that some of them may just stay at home or just not do anything. So we're dealing with a group that is small and probably will not have an impact in terms of deciding ultimately who becomes the president.
One last question having to do with what other influences on voters we are watching right now. Obviously, there are a lot of surrogates who are out there making the case for their candidate. There are also some cases where, and you have pointed out, Ben Sasse, who's a senator from Nebraska, has had some negative things to say about President Trump. John Cornyn the other day also indicating that, he differs with the president on a lot of issues. Now we've seen some people, former employees of the president, John Bolton, for example, with his book and a few others. Do people get influenced by what they say if they are saying things about the president, and especially if they're up for re-election and they're being a little critical of the president? How much stock do people put in some of those surrogates?
Well, I think you make a great point here. Surrogates are very important to political campaigns. The presidential candidate and the vice presidential candidate can't be everywhere. So what we do is we look to having campaigns send out other people to also speak the candidates' messages. So this week we're going to see Barack Obama out on the stage, who is still very popular. Overall is exceedingly popular, 95% among blacks, 91% among Democrats, 57% among suburban voters. He's a strong surrogate for the president. You're also going to see some of his past rivals, Castro, Sanders, Warren, Abrams, and so forth out there. And then some celebrities like Kerry Washington and Magic Johnson. So people are going to be looking at these surrogates and say, do I identify with them or not? And do I trust them? And are they going to give me information that's going to help? If you look on the other side of the coin, you have relatively few public surrogates. You have the Trump children, Laura Trump, Ronna McDaniels, people like Mark Meadows, but now we're seeing what I would call negative surrogates, people like Ben Sass, who are making comments which, interestingly, weren't being made earlier, but are now really calling out the president for a lot of his behavior, things like the way he kisses dictators' butts or how he regularly sells out our allies under his leadership. These are not things which are supportive statements. So I think that that's going to put a chink in in Trump's armor. But at the same time, I would suggest that many people in the United States don't even know who Ben Sass is. If you're a political junkie, you certainly do, but the average citizen doesn't. All they're going to know is that a Republican senator from the heartland is not saying nice things about the president and may cause them to sort of question whether or not they want to get onto that train.
Yeah, they'd probably know more if Ice-T is calling out Don Lemon, but, we'll leave that for another discussion. Dr. William Rosenberg. Bill, thanks as always for being on the show.
All right, you have a great day. Take care.
You too. Dr. William Rosenberg, professor of political science at Drexel University. Thoughts on the upcoming debate, the state of the race. He is tweeting at DRB Rosenberg.